Welcome to a Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. As the old saying goes, the beer doesn't fall far from the tree. And in today's episode, we're harvesting as much knowledge as we can get on foraged beers. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. Right, so if we just get into it. Do you want to sort of introduce who you are, what you do, what brewery you're from, and then give just a high level overview of the brewery?
Okay, yeah. So I'm Red. I'm from First and Last Brewery. It's myself and my husband Sam who run the brewery. We've been going since 2016. We started out by cooker brewing on other people's breweries before we got our own kit. So we did that for a couple of years, and then we installed our own kit in a little village called Elsdon, which is in North Northumberland, in 2018. And yeah, we've been quite happy in the village there, just kind of pottering away. We've gone from 2 fermenting vessels when we first started, because I was also working at 2 other breweries at the time. So life was pretty busy, kind of juggling stuff at that point. And we've slowly but surely moved into our own business. Now we're both full-time. We also employ Will, who's our kind of dray and brewery help and general kind of French genius when it comes to all things flavour, and a lad called Toby for a couple of days a week. So we're quite a small team, and yeah, we're having fun doing what we're doing, basically. Yeah, got into the thick of it now, so life's really quite busy.
Amazing.
I love the shirt, first of all.
Yep.
I'll say that. I love the Choose Points shirt. And I love the hat. I saw you guys sell them on your website. I was really tempted to get one, but I was like, no, just be really good, because I was trying not to spend money on beer. And I was just like, just get the beer you came for, and don't get anything else. It's a really
and you'd have to
hat.
choose between your Three Hills one as well.
I know, and I wear that one like all the time. But I love the hats with the bubble on it, the knitted hats with the bubble, because they're so warm. And I was so tempted. I was like, no, like sit on hands, don't do it. But that leads us to the first beer that Joe and I are going to crack today, which is your plum fruited Belgian ale. So that's the first one. That's this came out not too long ago, didn't it?
Yeah, we had a real bumper crop of plums in Northumberland. So yeah, we kind of launched the forage range as a whole during lockdown 1, but yeah, we've kind of just slowly but surely added, and the plum crop was just amazing this year. Really, really good. The blossom must have just done well. Everything's kind of landed well for plums in Northumberland. So yeah, we've harvested quite a lot this year, which is amazing. So yeah, lots of plum going to be brewed this year.
I was going to say, is there going to be lots of plum beer?
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. Oh. With the kind of foraged beers, it goes up and down as to how much you can get of different ingredients. So yeah, we've got lots of plums to play with this year.
I was gonna say, which leads me on to my first thing, is it smells absolutely lovely. Like you really get that plum smell in it as well, and it tastes really nice as well.
It looks beautiful. Like for anyone that's watching on the camera,
the head on it as well was like this. It was like this, almost like when you get a photo of like when you're trying to showcase like the ideal beer, and it's that perfect layer of foam like right on the top of it, and it is this very like the plum really comes through, and it is really more it's just quite good.
Yeah, it's really drinkable but very fruity. Wow, that's nice.
But it leads us to the topic of today, which is foraged beers, and I know that, as you said, you've done a lot with foraged beers, especially over the last lockdown period. So we thought, who better to speak to about foraging beers, foraging items for beer than you. So we just thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of understand the end-to-end process of what you go through when you make a foraged beer. So like if we use the plum one, for example, did you kind of decide, I'm assuming what's probably happened is you've gone, we have a lot of plums, let's do this. But is that how it normally is? Or do you normally have a beer in mind that you then go, where can I forage it from?
What we're trying to do is really match a beer style with a foraged ingredient, and take the characteristics of that foraged ingredient and match it with the correct kind of, I don't know, what we're thinking through what would go with those flavors, what would go with those aromas in terms of beer style. So instead of any ingredients that we add kind of overwhelming the style of the beer, we want the beer to shine through as well. But to make the most and bring the best of the characteristics of the foraged ingredient out. So if we're working with flowers, which can often be quite delicate, and you've got quite delicate floral aromas there. You don't want anything that's gonna overwhelm those in terms of your malt flavors, in terms of your yeast profile. It's about kind of matching one side of things and getting the best out of that ingredient, like you were doing cooking with the beer style that you're shooting for. So with the plum, obviously we're trying to max that kind of fruitiness and all of those esters and stuff from the lovely. We use S33 in that, which is a variety of yeast in this particular beer. So we brew a base beer. We then kind of will play around with different flavors, and then it's basically a bit of a guessing game and lots of trial and error to get the best out of that ingredient. So sometimes we've kind of decided to, for example, pair woodruff, for example, and we thought, right, we'll do a woodruff stout because there's lots of kind of almond and vanilla. We thought that'd go amazing with the stout. And then we brewed a Hefeweizen, and we're like, oh, actually, it goes better with the Hefeweizen.
Yes, I can see that.
I was just gonna say, like, I can definitely see that.
And we'll play around with different beer styles until they perfectly match with that wild ingredient, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now with plums, you've got so much kind of sweet, luscious fruitiness there. There's loads of Victoria plums in there, but there's other wild plums in as well. So, and it's a lovely thing to play with because year to year, your crop will change. If you're using a wild foraged ingredient, for example, sloe berries, sometimes they'll be really, really super tart. But if they're on a hedgerow in full sunshine, they've had a couple of frosts on them, they develop a real sweetness. So you're really kind of playing with something which is a little bit of an unknown, and that's a really exciting thing to do in brewing because it's not an ingredient that you're buying off the shelf. It's something which has natural variance in it, and you've got to make that work with the beer style. So yeah, it's a different way of kind of looking at the ingredients you've got to hand and making sure that they're shining through, but not overwhelming the beer style that you're wanting to kind of bring the best out of as well. That's where we come at it from anyway.
I think you nailed it perfectly. That's because you do get that plum, like the smell is very it's very much there in the smell. It's very much there and it's very fruity, but then, it has that like a dryness to it that sort of, it stops it from being too sweet as well. And it's just really lovely. But I don't think I appreciated it's, again, I've said this on past discussions with people, it's when you know something but you don't really know it because you don't really stop to think about it or appreciate it. The fact that like you're having to know, if we get this berry from this type of location, it's going to taste different to this type of location. You said it's such an unknown. That is so fascinating to think that you can pull off making something so like amazing by being like, yeah, it could end up tasting like this if we got it from another whole location. It's just, that blows my mind.
Well, some things are kind of learned from experience, and some things, like I say, are just pure trial and error and getting the best out of the ingredient you've got that year or in that part of the season. I mean, we've learned through experience that if we're picking gorse flowers, we do a gorse flower pale ale. Picking in sunny, warm, dry weather kind of conditions will give a much better beer. The flavour and the aroma of the gorse flower will come up much more strongly. And we start picking out in Northumberland, closer to the coast. So the season starts and the gorse flowers will start to come into bloom about 35 miles from us, much sooner than they'll come to us, in our area.
Yeah.
So we kind of like coordinate when we're picking in different sites because we have to get permission to pick in all of those sites. Obviously, you just can't go onto anybody's land and start picking the gorse bushes. They go mental, like you're probably being a gun out or something.
Yeah.
So we get permission for all of the sites, but we've kind of got used to where it's going to be best to pick at different times during the season. And obviously the weather changes every single year. You get these first flushes of flowers. If you get a dry period, everything goes a little bit dull and you don't get the intensity of flavour from the flowers at all. And then you'll get another little flush of rain, nice sunny dry day, and we're straight out picking because we know that those flowers are going to be in absolute prime condition. So yeah, you do have to be flexible on your brewing schedule as well because those flowers have to go straight in the beer. It's not like with plums where you can pick. We've just picked 210 kilograms the other week. It's like absolute masses, right? Get them in the freezer and we can use them bit by bit by bit. with the gorse flowers, it gets picked and it goes straight in the beer, and then we have to do a second pick for it to be dry flowered, like we would do a dry. So there's 2 different picks for each batch of beer. Got to kind of time it with the weather and watch the weather, what's the weather's doing, and yeah, it's I don't know, it just adds a different element to brewing, which we've always loved. Sam and I have always loved kind of, we started out brewing country wines about 20 years ago, and we got really into fermentation and started on the beer style, side of things, and it's it just adds a different element and a little bit of risk to it as well. You've got to, some years you just won't get what you thought you would in terms of harvest, even though you've got more sites, because the blossom will have got by frost, or there's been loads of wind and all the fruit's got knocked off the trees, or there's loads of things which aren't quite in your control. It's not like buying an off-the-shelf ingredient, which makes it a little bit more, I don't know, exciting and unique and different each time you brew it as well. It's really nice.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, because I know, like with honey, we've talked about this ourselves before. Like with honey, you can get honey, and like every year that's going to be different, because it's all going to come down to like, what are the bees having that year, or which location is it, and that's something that's completely out of your control. You can control getting the honey and who you get it from, but you can't control what those bees are doing to produce that honey. So that is definitely one of those like unknowns. You just kind of put your faith into to how things are going out there, and then just go, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just think, it's kind of putting it's putting a bit of nature into the beer, isn't it? A little more than usual. Obviously, you're always working with base ingredients. I mean, malt comes from the land. We use a base of spring pale. We try to use local ingredients through all of our beers as much as possible, but getting something which really reflects Northumberland, which is where we are. All of our wild ingredients picked from the county of Northumberland, and it gets us out into this gorgeous landscape. And it is that natural variance and appreciating it as well, and that being a little element of the beer which is down to nature as much as it is us making the effort to get out there and pick stuff. It's also, I don't know, it just makes each batch of beer a little bit unique. It's really good.
You said that you said there was kind of like just a small group of you at the start. You were saying, you are a small group at the moment. Is it just you guys that go and pick, or do you have volunteers that come out and help you pick? How many people on average do you normally pick with? Is it 4 of you, or is it a whole bunch of volunteers coming out?
It depends on whether we're doing collaboration beers. So, if we're working with another brewery, you'll maybe have a little gang of us and we'll go out picking.
Put them to work.
For International Women's Day, we always do like a women's brew with a community of women, but also with young women and girls as well, and just get everybody out. And it's part of the experience is getting out there and picking, and just it being a bit of an experience altogether. So sometimes there'll be a gang. Often it's just either me and Sam and Will. It just depends on the beer, to be honest.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. So when you get stuff like the plums and you're trying to put them in the freezer to preserve them for other beers later on, do you put them in whole, or do you put them in, do they have to be like processed in a particular way? It's something I've always been curious about when you go to freeze stuff.
Right, so with the plum, there's 20 kilograms. We're a 5-barrel brewery, so there's 20 kilograms go in as a whole fruit into the boil, and then I make puree to go in post fermentation to condition on as well. So there is some processing for part of that crop. So then we've got another 20 kilograms, which actually boils down to another 10 or 12 kilograms in puree form. So it depends on the fruit and how we're working with it. So, but some just goes in absolutely whole, 10 minutes before the end of the boil. It's just part of, that ingredient that goes into the copper. But some is kind of processed down and pureed, and obviously that takes up less freezer space as well, because we've got endless massive chest freezers. It's taking over our life, to be honest. It's freezing fruit. I mean, it's been mentally collecting sloe berries and bilberries and raspberries, and there's all sorts. So you just have to have so much freezer space to be able to kind of collect all of the stuff that you need to be able to brew a big batch of beer.
I picture you just having just all these whole plums, and you're I just need to get the plums out now, and it's like a big basket of plums or something. You must have to have amazing labeling in that freezer to be able to be like, there's the plums, there's the black currant, there's stuff over there.
Well, it's at the minute there's like we've got 4 chest freezers, massive chest freezers. So yeah, 1.5 is just completely filled with plums. We're not just talking about things. It's we got 210 kilograms in one pick this year, which is just amazing. Wow. That's a lot of volume. It's really good.
I was just last night, so I made some soup yesterday, and I had to rearrange my freezer to get the soup into the freezer. And I've got like a tub of cherries. I've got some Kent cherries. I halved my batch. One's gone in one lot of beer, and I've got another one. And I'm like, what am I going to do with that? But it was in a big box, and I had to put it into a smaller box so that I could fit the soup in as well. That was stressful enough last night, trying to work out where I was going to put all my soup in my little box of cherries, let alone that amount of plums.
Yeah, sometimes it is, but you've got to take the opportunity if you find that there's been a bit of a bumper crop. I mean, yeah, collecting all the elderberries. Oh my God, my life was filled with elderberries at this time. We're doing that. Oh, nights and nights and nights. And I tell you, like, people have said there's easy ways to get elderberries off the stalk, because you have to eliminate any stalk.
Okay.
In the beer at all, otherwise it just makes the beer really astringent and dry, so you don't want any stalk material in there at all. Oh, hours of my life. And honestly, my hands were like purple for like about 4 weeks.
Wow.
Just processing elderberries. It was pretty epic, because we had to barrel age some as well, so it was a lot of elderberries needed to be processed.
Oh wow. Yeah, but that's going to produce something like absolutely amazing though, like a barrel aged elderberry beer of sorts. So that's probably amazing.
Just about to taste it again this year. It'll been steeping for about 12 months, so we test it every month. But it was tasty last time we got in there. But we're going to be bottling it up for Christmas.
There must be something like when you make a beer, you're like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, because I don't know how the crops turned out this year, or something like that. And then you go and you taste it and it's good. That must be that sense of like, oh yeah, I did it. Like, I did this, and this could have gone wrong, but I made sure it did not go wrong.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It just I find it super fascinating. All of those flavors out of nature, and basically it's food for free as well, isn't it? It's there's so much going. I mean, people, everybody should be getting out making blackberry jam, and it's just, I don't know. There's so much to go at in nature. Like, I find it really inspiring. Plus, it's a nice thing to do with your time, especially this time of year. All the autumn colours out there, and get the kids out picking. I mean, last weekend we were up in where were we? We were up near Berwick, and we'd heard about these guys who had a damson orchard, so we went up there picking, took the kids up there, and it's a nice thing for them to do. They were clambering up the trees, getting the things that we couldn't reach. Got a really good crop out of this little orchard, just out of the way of this tiny little village. And these blokies were dead chuffed that their damsons weren't going to go to waste.
Yeah, amazing.
I said, it's got to be really like, if you're a person that's growing all this stuff as well, you must be in a situation where there's maybe more that I can use. And I know that around here people grow like baking apples and stuff, but they're not making enough, that they're trying to get rid of it, and everyone else like, I've got too many myself, I don't need them. So it must be nice knowing that they're not just going to go to waste, that someone's going to take them, someone's going to make something really great with them.
Absolutely. I think people appreciate when their produce is kind of transformed into something, even if they don't drink beer themselves. I mean, these guys they weren't really beer drinkers, but we'll take them some of the fruits of their produce, and it's nice to kind of have those links, those community links as well with people. And it's funny with the damsons, because I didn't realise before we started making that particular beer, the porter, that there's so many different types of damsons out there. Because we were out picking sloes last year and found this amazing hedgerow just up from the River Reed, and actually there's kind of wild damsons down this little tiny country lane, and we're there clambering over them. But I didn't realise that they're kind of more like bullaces, and there's a whole family of the damson family that, you know, go from wild plum, which are quite big and juicy, to these smaller damsons, which are really spiky trees and really, really tart.
Oh.
These round kind of, they're like damsons, but they're completely spherical, and then bullaces, and then you get the slowberries, and the leaves get smaller as you go kind of through that of trees, of that family of trees. And the spikes get bigger, and the fruit gets kind of harder and tartar as you go kind of through the family as well. But, you know, they're all interrelated in one point or another. It's just like, where does it stop being become a bullace, and where does it stop being a bullace and become a damson? You know, it's it's just fascinating. You're kind of living and learning all the time.
Yeah. So 2 questions off the back of what we've just been talking about. If someone wants to get into foraging, how can they start? And what laws and rules do they need to be aware of if they're going to forage?
Right, I mean, obviously safety and knowing exactly what you're picking. So if you can find somebody who is already into foraging, or you know, either you kind of got a mate or an associate who can kind of show you the ropes, that's probably the best way to get into foraging, to be honest, is make some kind of local links with people who are already out picking and who can show you the way, the rights and wrongs. And because yes, you've got to refer to kind of, you know, textbook and what's edible and what is definitely not edible, but some people find that quite bewildering, going straight into like an ID book. Do you know what I mean? If you can pick alongside somebody else and just bearings, start with the simple stuff, basically. I mean, it's very difficult to kind of not know what a raspberry is when you see a wild raspberry. Do you know what I mean? Start with stuff that you really can't go wrong with, before you start picking any berries which are a little bit more like, oh goodness, I don't know what that is, because really you can make yourself seriously ill, or you can make other people seriously ill if you kind of home brewing with stuff. Food safety is absolutely paramount, knowing exactly what you're picking and that it's not going to make anybody poorly. Then read uploads on how to treat that fruit or that wild ingredient, because even stuff that is fully edible, if it's really fully cooked, might not be edible if it's not treated in the right way. So, for example, you know, there's wild herbs, there's woodland floor plants. I mentioned woodruff before. If that's not dried out in exactly the right way over the right length of time, it can make you have a really poorly tummy. But if it is treated in the right way, it can be used in making biscuits or making sugar syrup, or, you know, or making beer, for example. So yeah, know how to treat your ingredients, and that is about the background reading and really getting yourself genned up on stuff. Landowner permission. Obviously there's places that we can all go, we can all wander, you know, there's places which you will be able to have access to, but only with landowner permission. So you need to be aware of what the rules of the land are, or where public footpaths, right of ways are. Even if it's a bridle way and it goes through private land, you know, make sure that you're being respectful to the people who actually own that land, because they don't, you know, they still own that pathway. They might just give that as a kind of permissive right of way. Make sure that you're not kind of annoying local residents by going through gates that you shouldn't be, or, you know, kind of stretching the limits of the public bridle way. I mean, it's always tempting if you see an amazing bush and it's on the other side of a dry stone wall, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'll just climb there. But get permission from the people who actually own and farm that land, obviously making sure that you're respecting the country codes and closing gates where you should be, and all that kind of jazz. I mean, there's places which are fine to kind of go picking, a kind of almost seen as common land, but also being safe. I mean, there might be amazing blackberries down the side of a railway, but I wouldn't advise anybody to go in there.
No.
I mean, you've got to kind of think of your own safety as well as the permission that you need to actually get onto the land when you're picking. But I mean, because we're doing this for a commercial brewery, we tend to develop good relationships with landowners where we are, and obviously ask full permission and let them know when we're going to be going. We always go in our FNL hoodies or hats just to make sure that they know who's there and that they know we're not just wandering around picking. And I think one of the biggest things from an environmental point of view is don't pick it all. it's there as wild fruit because it supports a whole host of animals and insects, and you don't want to go and absolutely pillage everything that's there. You know, we work on a rule of taking a maximum of half of any kind of site that we look at, or any kind of bush, because you want to leave enough for the birds and the insects basically for them to thrive as well. It seems like a bit of a shame when you see stuff kind of rotting on the floor when it hasn't been picked soon enough. You know, you turn up and think, oh, if I was only there a week earlier. But even in that case, you know, make sure you leave a little bit for wildlife to thrive as well.
Sounds like it's like a delicate balance there of taking what you need, not taking too much, and making sure, you know, you're taking from nature. So you want to make sure that you're being good back to nature is really what it sounds like. What that's part of what it comes down to as well.
Absolutely, it totally works through everything we do. I think, you know, it's a personal ethic, but that has kind of built itself as part of our brewery in a big way. Looking at things in a sustainable way and using local ingredients and using what nature has to offer, but definitely not nicking it all, and making sure that there's enough to go around the birds and the bugs and the beasties as well.
Do you ever see a bush when you're out walking somewhere? Like you mentioned, oh, there might be a black bush that's just overhead. Like, do you ever make a note? Do you ever see a really good looking bush or a patch of bushes and then make a note and be like, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to see if I can get in there?
You know what? Totally. We've got this like little Google Maps kind of pin thing of when we're driving around Northumberland, and you might be in completely the wrong season for the fruit that you're looking at, but you see all the blossom out for the sloes, you know, you see all the blackthorn blossom, absolutely beautiful in the springtime. We're like, right, make a note of that, stick a pin in the map, and we go back at the right time of year, and then it's just working out when that particular area will come ripe again. I mean, I was picking sloes and rose hips 2 weeks ago, down a particular lane just between here and Rothbury, and absolutely lovely site, but where the sun had hit, you know, the south facing hedgerow was all absolutely gorgeous, and you know, we got a really good picking from there. But the north facing hedgerow on the other side of the road, it's going to take a couple of weeks more to actually ripen because it just doesn't get the sunrise, the sun through the day. So yeah, we'll definitely be heading back there, but it's kind of making a mental note, and you find, particularly at this time of year, you just get your eye in. You know, I'm driving around Northumberland and trying not to swerve into things because I'm like, oh God, blackberries, you know, my ladder. I always take a basket wherever I go, basically.
Amazing.
Like that's me with dogs. I'll be driving down the road and I'll see a dog and I'll be like, oh, dog. And I feel like that's my reaction to dogs is probably when you see a really good bush and you're like, oh, that looks amazing. And I'm like, dog. I want to go say hi to it.
I'm just glad we were just exactly the same with blackberries. That's it.
That is really cool, because that would be my thought process would be if I was doing the same thing you were doing, I'd probably be going, oh, there's a really good bush I've spotted. Better make a note of that so we can go back there.
And you find when you start getting your eye in, it becomes like a minor obsession, you know? You kind of just see patches of stuff, and you do. That's all your kind of eye is focusing. You're honed in on this other world of wild fruits, and it's just like picking like treasure. It's such a good thing to do in the afternoon. Like we were picking rose hips the other day, and it's just like little red jewels, and I absolutely love it. It kind of breaks up the brewing week as well, gets you away from stainless steel for a bit, and
get the nice fresh air. And I bet when it's a really lovely day out as well, like you probably can't beat that, just going out on a really lovely, there's probably worse things you could be doing on a really lovely day than out foraging rose hips or plums or damsons or anything like that. I imagine you get to see some nice parts of, you know, the countryside that you maybe wouldn't normally get a chance to see. I know we just talked about sort of the rules around if you're going to pick on somebody's property or how you actually go about foraging. Are there any health and safety rules that are put upon you as a brewery that's using, you know, foraged goods, or is that just sort of something that you meet the bare minimum of health and safety you have to brew, and they just rely on you basically knowing what you're doing in terms of the actual using the foraged ingredients?
So basically we're not using anything which could be harmful to people, and we're not in the realms of brewing with wild mushrooms or anything that has any kind of toxic element to it at all. So we kind of play the safe line with that, not pushing the boundaries and, put an ingredient in which might actually cause either an allergic reaction or any kind of like stomach upset or, anything like that. Because obviously we're governed by the rules that every brewery is governed by. You get inspected by environmental health, etc., trading standards. The basic food safety is paramount. You don't want to be putting out a product that's going to make anybody feel, poorly or a little bit weird. Or so we're not kind of pushing the boundaries too much in terms of the ingredients that we're using are commonly used across the world. I would say they're just wild.
Makes sense. So how many days in a year do you normally go foraging? Like, do you do a whole bunch of days straight of foraging different ingredients and then go and make a few different beers out of it? Or do you forage like once a month, twice a month sort of thing?
So there are definite seasons for when, ingredients come into flush and they're really plentiful. So over the winter it's really difficult. We would love to during those quieter months. Over the winter months it'd be brilliant to be doing loads of foraging because you're not necessarily as full on with the brewery as you would be during the kind of summer season. As soon as March comes, it's just like rah, brew like crazy. Do you know what I mean? But you can't really take advantage of the foraging during the winter because there's not that much out there.
Yeah.
It's not like you've got kind of the autumn time with kind of wild fruits is absolutely brilliant. So we tend to do a lot of foraging during, I would say, end of August through to October. You've got all of the kind of wild fruits, the tree fruits, the stone fruits. Then all your berries kind of come, and then you get into more late berries like sloes, which take a couple of good frosts before they're actually good to pick.
Okay.
Flavor, the flavor gets better if they've had a couple of frosts on them. Before that, they can be very tart and astringent, really, really sharp. And obviously you want that sharpness out of the sloes, but they do kind of soften a lot after they've had a couple of frosts on them. So there's a bit of a bounty period, I would say, from late summer through to kind of very early winter. Kind of flowers and woodland floor ingredients tend to be earlier in the year. So for the gorse flowers, we're tending to pick that from around, April onwards. We tried to brew gorse in March one year, and there just wasn't enough. Like I was saying, you need those really warm, sunny days to get the best out of the plant.
Yeah.
So the first problem is if you try to pick too early, it's not plentiful enough. And with gorse flowers, it's really prickly to pick. It's like on a massive, great big thorny plant. It's like really spiky and sharp. Yeah. So you don't want to just be picking the odd flower because it'll just take you weeks to get, several kilograms. Which is what we're looking for, and they're really light. That's a lot of gorse flowers. So we've learned to kind of wait until further into April for picking because then they're far more plentiful. We start picking out the coast, like I said, because they come into flower a lot earlier. It's just lower altitude. They get the sun a little bit more, and where we are, kind of, it's further inland. And we're nearly 1,000 feet where we are in Reedsdale. So the flowers come a lot later, but that means we've got quite a good period of about 2 months, which we can pick by as long as we pick our sites carefully. Stuff like woodruff is generally kind of May onwards, all the way through the summer. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the spruce beer. We aimed to do that in late April this year. And we kind of set a brew date, and we realised if we just left it another 3 or 4 weeks, life would have been a lot easier.
Oh no! Well, speaking of that, are you ready to crack open?
Yeah.
So we actually we got one of these before, and I think we had it on a different episode that we did, and we really liked it.
We really liked it, so we got some more.
Well, I'm going to crack one as well because it's amazing. I can drive after it. I'll be good.
Love a grisette.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love this.
you mentioned oh yeah, that there was a spruce grisette that wasn't on the website yet and all that, and I went, sounds really familiar, I'm not sure. And then when I saw it, I went, oh, we had this one before and I really liked it.
Yeah. It was
And
good.
again, it's like perfect pour, isn't
It's
that?
beautiful. Yeah. Lovely big head.
So tell us about why, if you had just waited, it would have made your life easier.
Yes.
Because I mean, we did this as a collaboration with McColl's Brewery, right? And we've been chatting about like doing something with spruce tips. We both like those kind of piney, light, fresh flavors. So we've been talking about which style to match it with. We work with grisette, obviously low ABV, really light, refreshing, kind of really spring-like as a beer. So, and we both had time in our calendars as well in April. So it was all, the planets were aligned, right? Apart from the spoon trees. They're not ready. They were like, no, we're going to have our needles. We are not growing anything. Literally, like Danny McCall and his family, and me and Sam and our kids, like every weekend we're scouring Northumberland. Waiting for the little kind of new growth to come on the end, because you want those really that fresh growth, and it's bright green. It's such a beautiful colour when the spruce tips emerge, and it's the really soft needles as they're first growing, so it's before they kind of harden up and get weathered, and yeah, they're much softer than the rest of the tree. And we're like literally scouring everywhere. We walked miles. I cannot tell you how many miles we walked. I basically wore out a pair of boots looking for spruce tips. It was ridiculous. He's doing exactly the same. And we're like checking in with each other every day going, well, that site looks like it's just about to burst, but it's not quite there. Like, and then we managed to get enough. But I mean, we did we went to so many different sites to actually get enough for the beer, because we put a load of spruce tips actually into the boil, and then we made a tea to go in just kind of two-thirds of the way through fermentation. So like boiled up more spruce tips and kind of made just made it kind of tincture of tea with them, and then added that into the beer kind of halfway through fermentation. Just to add two different kind of elements to or characteristics of the ingredient, really. We didn't want it to get too dry and astringent. And I don't know whether you've had other spruce ales, but sometimes if it's too forward, we were worried it would overwhelm the malt kind of character. Obviously, we're working with really pale, light malts in there, and we wanted the style of beer to shine through as well, so we didn't want it to get out of balance. We got enough finally, and then we were kind of texting each other about 2 or 3 weeks later, and they were everywhere. There were spruce tips everywhere you look. Like, I mean, we could have picked tons of spruce tips really easily, within a couple of hours, and we'd spent days and days trying to get enough for this beer. It was just ridiculous. So we've learned a lesson there. Wait till May rather than trying to do it in April.
You know what'll happen if you waited. If you waited, it's like a watch pot never boils. You would have waited, and then all of a sudden it would be like, it's not happening. It doesn't matter. I feel like it probably wouldn't have mattered no matter when you picked it. It would always be right after that. It's because you put the pain and the love into it. That's what makes it extra good.
It was tenacity and determination that day. It was a lot of fun to do. Those guys are brilliant down there. Such a good laugh. So we did have a really good time. But yeah, there was some miles went into that beer.
Did you guys pick them independently of each other and then bring your own bunches together, or how did that work? Did you just go, they're ready now, and did they drive up to you when it was ready, or you drive down to them, or?
They're down County Durham, so it's quite a while. We wait for like 2.25 hours. So we planned a Sunday afternoon to go picking together with Danny's family and with our family, and he went down kind of on the night before and was just like, there's nothing in this particular woodland, so we had to cancel that date. And we live kind of on the edge of Kielder Forest, like in Reedsdale Forest. So we were just going kind of off the beaten path here, and he was trumping around in County Durham trying to find another So we had intention to kind of pick most of it as a joint thing, because we like to do that with the forage that we do as collaborations, because as I said, it's not just about brewing the beer, it's about getting all of the ingredients together as well with whoever you're collaborating with, and that has its own, you know, its own adventures and its own crack. It's nice to work with people and stuff like that.
So I assume with the spruce, because you then save some of it to make a tea, does that, like, do you dry it out? Did you have to freeze that? How did you store those?
Oh, for the tea?
Yeah.
So we did another pick. It was like,
you did another pick?
Yeah, we just did another pick. Yeah, so it's
completely... You have to use that like fairly soon after you picked it, yeah?
I mean, I understand. I think you can preserve spruce tip needles. I think you can freeze them. Some ingredients react really well to freezing anyway. If you're using like a stone for it, actually breaks down the cell wall and extract more. I don't think that's necessarily the case with spruce tips, but I think it will be absolutely fine to freeze them. But we didn't. I just did another pick and then made a massive tea, and then that went in the beer. Yeah.
Interesting. So then you got to work out, like, am I getting it fresh? Do I need to have this ready to go? Like, can I freeze it? When do I need it? Like,
with an ingredient like that, I reckon if you've got the option, fresh is always best.
Yeah.
But if you're working with pretty much any kind of fruit, freezing works really well, because, as I say, it just breaks down the cell wall. Most people who are making, you know, wines will do exactly the same. Just it helps kind of extract most of the flavour and fruit from, you know, the juice from them.
So if location, you know, if you weren't limited to what was immediately around you or the time of the year it was or anything, what would be a ingredient that you would most want to be able to forage and brew a beer with? If you could pick like anything, you didn't have to worry about like concerns about market, like what the market wanted, of people buying it, or what you were limited to, anything that you could forage, what would you want to brew with?
Oh my goodness, that's a really interesting question. That's a really interesting question.
It has to be a real item, like we can't make things.
Long, no.
So it's the one parameter I'll put on it, is it has to be real.
No, I'm quite interested in. See, I really like dark malty beers. I'm quite. I'm into my stouts, my porters, and I read about this brewery in North America. They might just be in Canada, and they're using some kind of like it's a bark of a tree that's kind of native to that area, and they use that in a stout. And again, it's those vanilla kind of things, but you know, like almost like you would barrel age. They're using the ingredient fresh. I would really like to investigate that a little bit more as to what I have to give, not just in terms of the fruits that they're producing, or you know, obviously we're using kind of fruits and flowers a lot. We use some woodland kind of plants like the woodruff, but it's like, I would like to investigate that, go further, because I think there's loads and loads of potential to go out there. You think how amazing, really brilliant, like barrel-aged imperial stout is. Imagine using the intensity of that flavour. I don't know, so I would like, that would be an area of exploration for me, I guess, and a little bit of further learning, because it's an area that I don't know much about yet, but I'm sure there's like loads of potential to use kind of toasted wood and things ingredient in a beer, but fresh, and see what, you know, native UK species have to give. So yeah, I could see that as a little adventure, a little sideline for me in the future. So yeah, be a bit of a research project.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
We'll look out for that small batch range.
Yeah, look out for the wood range for sure. And in a similar vein, so as a person that's from the US myself, I've traveled to a lot of places in the UK. I don't know if I've ever really been to Northumberland. What of your beers, because I know you're quite inspired by the nature around you, what of your beers do you think best represents? It doesn't have to be one that you have in stock at the moment, but what of the beers have you brewed do you think best represents Northumberland, and why?
Oh, goodness me.
Like if you were to describe to people who have never been there what Northumberland is like through your beers, what would it be?
Pulling out good questions tonight.
You know what? I think it's the one we've got coming up, because I've just had an absolute ball. We've been picking for the last, I would say, 8 weeks or so for a hedgerow. We're calling it hedgerow. and it's a Goza style. Yeah, it's got a few different elements. So there's so many places in Northumberland we have picked because we need a significant amount of fruit for this beer. So it's going to have wild raspberries in it. It's going to have bilberries from the hills. It's got some sloe berries in it. Just all of these beautiful places that, to me, sum up Northumberland, because we've been picking while we've been over near the coast, near Bamborough, up in the hills, near Harbottle. Just absolutely stunning, amazing places. So all the places that I really love being, it kind of encapsulates those. But the other element for that beer is we're going to be using some salt from Northumberland as well. There's a new little tiny company set up called Holy Island Sea Salt, and it's a lovely lady called Helen making sea salt from the seawater by Holy Island, and we're going to use that salt in our beer. So it's really like all elements of that beer. The base malt will come from Jedburgh, the fruit comes from all of these gorgeous places in the hedgerows of Northumberland, and then the other main ingredient, the salt, comes from the waters around Northumberland. And I just think it's a little bit of everything. It's got the hills, it's got the seaside. Yeah, I think that's I hope it sums up what we've got to give. I love spending time outside, just exploring in the wild. We always have, Sam and I really, that's been a part of our life. That's where we live. That's why I've decided to set up the brewery where we are. It's the back end of nowhere, if I'm honest. Like, we are right out in the wilds, but we wouldn't move it for the world. You kind of think we don't want to grow too big and move into the city, which would be a necessity. It's like, it's not where we're at. We like being out in the wilderness and being part of that community, which is, it's sparsely populated, and it's just lush. And I would encourage everybody to come and have a look, because Northumberland's a really, really beautiful place, and it's kind of, I think, to a lot of people, quite undiscovered. It's not like the lakes, or it's not like Devon and Cornwall, and people don't know it so well, but it's such a stunning, varied landscape. It's a really beautiful place. So hopefully this beer gets a little bit of element of the seaside and the coast and the hills as well.
That next beer sounds gorgeous. We're gonna have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to do another joint order and put some more, because that sounds really lovely. If somebody wanted to come, and we'll get hats this time. If somebody wanted to come and help you pick, like, would they be able to reach out to you and say, "Oh, can I help you pick for a day?" Or do you not necessarily do that for health and safety reasons, or whatever else?
If somebody wanted to kind of connect with the brewery and say hi, and we're always welcoming to people coming and seeing what we do. We don't run any kind of like activity or event days like that, but we're not averse to the idea of definitely people coming and helping out. I mean, there's local landlords and landladies, particularly with the damsons and with the gorseflower. They're like, if it means you can brew more beer, then we'll get.
That's amazing.
Absolutely love that.
Look in and bring stuff into the brewery and help out. So yeah, the more the merrier, I say.
So it's like you're selling Northumberland to me as a person that doesn't know what it's like from that last beer description. And I'm like, if Joe and I go up to Northumberland, like, can we go visit the brewery? How does it work? Can we pick? Like, that would be. We were talking the other day about how we wanted to go picking, like hot picking and stuff like that, and where we could do that. And so it just sounds really fun.
That would be awesome. We'll go wild swimming as well.
Hey, amazing.
I totally. If you or if anybody else are up for kind of coming and just seeing a little bit of Northumberland and helping out, then awesome. We're all good for that. It's very seasonal. We have to take our opportunity when it's happening. Obviously we're kind of we're bound by the fruit.
Yeah. We're always happy to get our hands dirty.
Brilliant. Well, you're welcome absolutely anytime. It'd be a joy. Little playground.
But I'm conscious of the time, so I've got like one more set of questions to ask you. But Joe, before I move on to that last bit of questions, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
So we were you were talking about the gorseflower being quite thorny. Is there any like particular thing, like have you got sets of gloves that you wear? Is there anything particular, or just, you're just used to it now?
You know what? Tiny hands are an advantage, I have to say. Like my daughter's absolutely brilliant at gorse picking because she's got like little tiny, tiny hands you can get in. And we tried with gloves, with fingerless gloves. Yeah, we've tried every which way, and basically
stops the dexterity.
Yeah, you've got to have the dexterity. So we just pick without now because it's easier. And it hurts. You end up with super tingly fingers.
Yeah.
Early in the season, that first flush of flowers, you're working with really hard kind of last year's thorns, if that makes sense. Last year's on the gorse plants. The later flush of flowers, if you're really lucky and there's been the right kind of rain and the right kind of sunshine, you get this second flush and there's like the ends of the branches will just be covered in flowers, but you've also got the new growth of the gorse underneath that. And it looks super spiky, but it'll be kind of a softer new growth of green.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more pliable, so you spike yourself a little bit less. So the later the picks are, the less painful it becomes. The first to just the annihilator. And you always blank it out from the year. The year previous, like, why do we do this beer every year?
It's fine. I've got asbestos hands. I can do it for the beer. It's fine.
I was gonna say, it's that thing that you're like, maybe this year will be different, and then you and then you pick it. You're like, it's not different. It still feels just as bad.
But the best thing is the sites that there's gorse all over. I mean, they do say that gorse does actually flower every single month of the year. But not an individual gorse plant won't flower every single month of the year. But if you're in Cornwall, you might see it flowering in December. It never flowers in December up here, but it's quite a fascinating kind of really hardy plant. And I just love the places that it tends to grow because they tend to be kind of just wild and windy and a little bit wildernessy. And so even though it really hurts, it's one of my pleasurable times of picking in the year because I get to go to gorgeous places, and it takes so long. You've got to have a full day at it, It's got to be put in fresh. So you've got to make sure you've got a really, good batch of kind of 6-7 hours to pick enough. And it tends to be kind of 2 or 3 people, and it's like, right, blitz it, because you've got to get enough to go in fresh. It can't be stored for another day. You'll just lose all of that lovely delicate aroma. And the other thing is, as you're walking around the fields picking, you've got this amazing, just the aroma is just like coconut, Have you ever walked in between gorse flower plants?
No,
I haven't, but I know that when you can go out in certain areas, like if there's like certain flowers there, then the smell can just be really lovely. So I can only imagine how lovely it is.
Gorse flower, just the aroma is just like sun cream. It's like going on holidays. Coconut, really, really strongly. And it's just a beautiful thing to be around as well. So I do enjoy that time of year, even though it's spiky.
Worth it.
It's a labor of love. That's what it is. Like making beer is a labor of love. Wait, so just that's just reminded me of you saying you've got to sort of pick in. It's got to go right in. Do you start a brew, then go out, get what you need, and then add it in, or is it literally you get it all and then you start brewing maybe later in the day than you'd normally brew if there wasn't fresh ingredients going in?
Right, so the first pick has to, it just goes in fresh. So we'll either kind of pick through a morning and then brew that, or we'll pick through one day and then it has to be brewed early the next day.
Next morning, yeah.
The second addition goes in as a dry flower. So for that, it's just like adding, like you would, a dry hop into the beer, and towards the end of fermentation. So you just make sure you're not brewing the day that you're actually going to be putting the dry flower in. So you pick all of that day and then it goes in absolutely fresh. Yeah, it's one of those things which is, I guess, fairly risky. People get really worried about kind of putting fresh ingredient into, without it being boiled up or anything like that. Lose everything from those flowers. So I guess there is a risk element to the beer. It might go off. We've never had a batch which has been a problem at all. People get really edgy about, obviously it's a wild ingredient. It's been out in the air, but it just, you've got a certain level of acidity, and obviously you've already got an alcohol content to the beer as well. It's 5% beer. I think if we would struggle perhaps if it was a lower ABV beer, it wouldn't have enough alcohol to kind of deal with anything that we're putting in terms of flowers. But yeah, you've got to have that absolutely fresh, otherwise it just doesn't give the same kind of aroma and flavour that you're looking for. You need that intensity and the sunshine. We've learned that through experience as well. Pick it while it's warm.
I think, that's a testament to how experienced you guys are and how good you are, what you do. The fact that you've not had anything go off that's far, touch wood. Obviously, I don't want to be like the person that brings a jinx upon you, but obviously it's a testament to what you guys do and your knowledge and experience and all that. So, I mean, yeah. I know that you guys are also quite environmentally conscious about your practices. So I didn't know if you just kind of wanted to take a minute to talk about what you guys do in terms of like environmentally friendly stuff that I know that you guys do at your brewery.
Righty-ho, yeah, we are. It's just part of our ethos as people, really. We both come from environmental backgrounds, so we both did environmental degrees. That was our kind of. Well, that's actually where I started out brewing. I was working at Newcastle University in sustainability projects, and then bid for a bit of money to set up a sustainable microbrewery, and they gave us the money. I was like, who would give money to set up a student brewery? But anyway, they did. So that's still running back at the uni. But then that's how I got into kind of commercial brewing and went to train at Brew Lab and all that kind of jazz. I don't know, everything we do, we think about the environmental impact of it, because it's just where we've kind of come from as people, really. And we wanted, if we were going to go and set up a business, we wanted that to be as sustainable as possible. So talked a little bit about use of local ingredients wherever possible. You know, we think carefully about where we source our malted grains from, etc. We do use hops from all over the world. I guess that's one of the points where definite room for improvement. But if you do want to brew, you know, American IPAs, you kind of need to, yeah.
Have American
I mean,
hops.
yeah. You're kind of bound to a certain degree, depending on like what it is you're wanting to brew for variety.
Yeah, and it's not that we don't brew those styles, but in terms of you know, our ingredients, wherever possible, we want to use local. We think carefully about how we treat our waste. I mean, most breweries their grain will go into, you know, the animal feed kind of system. We've got 2 farms that we work with, and they're both within 1.5 miles of the brewery. So yeah, it's quite a nice closed cycle, really. You know, we see the belted Galloways, little kind of calves who are brought up on our grain, and you know, they're literally running around the fields and not very far from the brewery at all. So that's really nice. All of our hops go to George, who's our local veg man, who kind of feeds the valley with all the fruit and vegetables. So he grows. He's got a massive plot just outside the village where we brew. So all of our spent hops go to him for mulch, for compost. In terms of our kind of waste effluent and, you know, our chemical usage, we collect all of the waste effluent from the brewery. It all goes into IBCs, which are these big containers, and then we neutralise everything before it goes down the drain. So it's kind of pH neutral, which isn't something, if you were working in a city environment, you would have to do. We are in a very small village, and you know, it's basically one treatment plant for that village, and then that discharge is put into the local burn. So we need to be really careful about, you know, minimizing any impact that we have. We don't want to have any kind of negative impact, so everything gets neutralized before it goes down the drain. So it's thinking carefully about what you can do. Just simple things in terms of packaging. You know, we go to kind of zero plastic packaging in all our postal stuff. So just easy things like using paper tape with biodegradable glue. It's simple stuff, really. But if everybody did it, there'd be a heck of a lot less plastic out there. So I'm sure, you know, and with our can range as well, the cans are, the wrap on them is, it's like a biodegradable, yes, exactly.
Like a full wrap.
It's a full wrap, yeah. It's I can't remember what it's made out of now. Anyway, it's got no plastic in it. You put it in your compost and it'll degrade down to nothing.
Oh wow, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It is really good.
Never heard of that before, and
That's
to be honest,
amazing.
I didn't even think to look at that part of
Yeah.
the back of the label to even see that.
It's Oast House who make those. So it's at Oast House who make the cans and do those biodegradable wraps. Brilliant. And if more people use those rather than the plastic labels, it's all just little things, isn't it? It's little kind of things. Everybody could contribute a little bit. So yeah, we do try and minimize our impact. And if there's stuff that isn't right, then we're always trying to think about ways in which you can change that and just tweak it. And, you know, everybody just playing their little part, I think, will help our world survive a little bit longer anyway.
Yeah. No, definitely. I can tell you, like, I don't feel or notice a difference, like in the sense of between this label for anyone who watched the video and like another. It's not like you're going, oh, I've made it a bit more environmentally friendly and therefore it feels cheap, looks cheap, you know, doesn't look professional or anything. It looks the exact same as any other label. You wouldn't even notice a difference.
I just remembered it's cornstarch. I mean, Oast House is one of the biggest kind of can producers in the UK, and they're just brilliant. It's just an alternative that they have as part of their range, and more breweries are starting to use it. So you'll see lots of people out there. You know, it's a good thing. Just encourage more people to do it rather than the I don't know, ubiquitous plastic wrap.
Exactly. And I mean, I hope people see this and go, wow, like, you know, if they were making a choice because they were afraid that maybe using an alternative wouldn't look as nice or anything like that, hopefully they kind of see this, they see the labels that you guys are using and they can see, oh, actually it you know, quality wise it still looks really good quality and it feels really good quality, and no one's going to even question, oh, is it biodegradable or is it, you know, it. And I mean, when the box arrived, it's not like I went, oh, this isn't packaged safely or anything like that. It was packaged in the same exact way that I get. It felt like it was the same quality as any other packaging I'd get, but to know it's more environmentally friendly as well is it's just really interesting that you're using like alternatives to just using, you know, the tape. You know, you're using better tape, for example, but it's not like you're getting a worse or a less safe package out of that or anything.
Yeah, I think you know, there's some really good alternatives out there, and you pay a few pennies more for it, and that's the thing. But if I think that's worth we feel it's worth paying that extra.
I think as a consumer, I mean, I can't speak for you, Joe. I know you'd probably agree. As a consumer, I think that I'd pay. I wouldn't have any qualms about paying a bit more, knowing that it was going to be a bit more environmentally friendly. Like if someone said, oh, this is going to cost you an extra quid or two because we've used environmentally friendly labels and we're being sustainable with our brewing practices, like I wouldn't turn around and go, £2. I mean, I don't think so. That's a bit much, you know.
I don't want to save the planet.
Yeah, like where it's for the good of all of us.
Awesome.
Yeah. So is there any upcoming beers or events or anything you want to plug? Feel free to plug your socials. Feel free to plug anything you want right now.
Well, I mean, I would say just check out First Last Brewery on. We usually put anything that we're doing in terms of beer talks, and we've got a couple of things happening with an organisation called Wild Intrigue that we partnered with them on a Bats and Beers event recently, but we're looking forward to doing some more stuff with them, basically getting people into beer who might be into wildlife, or into wildlife who might be into beer. So we try and kind of, I don't know, share audiences a little bit, if that makes sense. They do some really interesting stuff about helping people explore the wildlife of Northumberland, and we're, I don't know, I guess trying to get a beery craft beer audience towards them, and then, you know, maybe wildlifey people will come and start drinking our beer out in Elston as well.
Nice.
So things coming up then. In terms of new beers, yeah, we've got the barrel aged double. We want to do more barrel aged beers. Hopefully, yeah, a few things on the horizon this coming year with more of the barrel age program, but I won't say too much about that.
Ooh, keep it as a surprise.
Take my money.
Double coming up for Christmas, so I'm really looking forward to that, because it was cracking first time round, but I think it's going to be nice having had a little bit of a slumber in a Rioja barrel.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with the fact it was amazing the first time around.
Yeah.
But like that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely another one I'll have eyes out for.
Yeah.
For sure.
Doing a few collaborations coming up with some lovely people. I mean, what lovely people are out in the beer industry. It's like one big group of mates, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Such a lovely community. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to going and visiting a few breweries over the next couple of weeks. It's kind of after the summer madness, it's the chance that everybody takes just to kind of visit each other and brew beer together. And yeah, really
Festival season's done. Now it's time to go collaborate in a bit more relaxed environment. And
these few weeks before you start going, it's going to be Christmas.
It's Christmas now.
Hanging out with some friends over the next few weeks and brewing beers with them. So
Amazing.
yeah, some on the horizon, some fun things. Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful. Well, obviously we'll put the links to all your socials, the website, everything in the show notes. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to talk to us. I learned a lot of things in this episode, a lot of really interesting things, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of other people that listen that have just learned a lot of things that they didn't even think they wanted to know until they heard this, and now they're like, what? Tell me more. So I encourage them to go check you guys out, go check out your beers. They're lovely. And it's been a lovely conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Welcome back. So you will have just seen the wonderful conversation that we had with Red from First Last Brewery. That was a wonderful conversation. I learned so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk to us, Red. It was brilliant. On that, I mean, we mentioned on it that we had the Light Nights, which is the Spruce Grisette, the collab they did with McCall's Brewery. So we had this on the Farmhouse Ales episode that we did. We talked about it extensively. It was really lovely then. It's still really lovely now. When we were prepping to do this Foraged Beers episode, I knew I wanted to do a Foraged Beers episode. Joe got on board with doing a Foraged Beers episode. I started buying up Foraged Beers that I could find, and Joe the same. And one of the beers we got was, and I wanted this for the name, and then I think I wanted it for the name, and then it developed into, we could just do a Foraged Beers episode, which justified the purchase completely. It's Wild Weather's Spruce Foresight, and that's a foraged spruce tip pale. So we thought it would be a good segue now. We've saved some of the Spruce Grisette. We've obviously got the pale. We're going to kind of have them next to each other. Now, we understand entirely that they are different styles. We're not expecting them to be the same.
Don't at us that one's a pale and one's a grisette.
Yeah,
we're aware.
Yeah, don't at me like I'm not aware that they're not going to taste the same, like they are going to have different characteristics to it.
It's more about how we can pick out the spruce from both of them.
Exactly. So first thing we both noticed was that it poured. Like if I pour this now on camera, it pours.
Head.
Yeah.
Pretty foamy.
It like is growing. It is like, look at that. It's like when you dump bubble bath in a tub and then you just like have the water gush down, that one spot just gets like really, really foamy. But it recedes quite like, you know,
stick a flake in that bad boy.
Yeah, you can definitely stick a flake in it. It holds well, but it doesn't like take up the whole glass or anything like that. Obviously, like I said, we know they're different styles. It's a much darker color. They look entirely differently. This one's definitely hazed. I've got it in my nice Wild Weather glass.
It's more gold, whereas the other one's more straw.
Yes, exactly that. I've got photos. I'm sure I'll put it somewhere, either on Instagram or on the blog that I never keep up with. I'm sure it will go somewhere.
So what I've noticed is in the aroma, you get that kind of spruce pininess. It's a lot, I think it's a lot stronger in the grisette. And they're both slightly, so the grisette's got,
I think they come up in different ways.
Yeah. So in the grisette, it's very zingy. And I think that's because they dry hopped the grisette with relax hop, which adds lemongrass.
It is, there's that zestiness to it.
So
it's
that's
definitely
kind of,
more...
so you're getting that kind of freshness is being boosted by that hop. Whereas in the Wild Weather, I'm getting it more fruity. Like, in fact, I get a bit of plum.
Oh, interesting. So I don't know if I get plum. I definitely get like I get more earthiness to it.
Yeah.
I definitely get more like. So this tastes like a zest, like you said, zesty, light, lemony type, fresh, like fresh outdoors. Whereas this smells more like, in my opinion, pure like spruce, like earthy. It has that earthy tree quality to that smell. It is, I don't want to say like resinous because it's not quite resinous. Maybe like it's not, but it's got that like maybe piney is kind of more what I'm going for. More of that fresh outdoor smell, but like in a really good way.
Do you know what it tastes like?
What does it taste like,
It
Jo?
tastes like a spruce tip blonde that I had in Alaska that I never thought I'd taste again, which makes me really happy.
So yeah, so if I'm reading, basically what I've got from the Wild Weather website is this is a very special pale ale brewed with local spruce tips, foraged by Wild Weather's staff and volunteers from Reading amateur brewers. Fresh and floral with notes of gingerbread and resin. So there's that resin that I kind of mentioned. I said it was like I didn't really get the resinous in the aroma, but I can see where sort of like that resin is coming from, where you'd get that. And like the gingerbread, I don't quite get gingerbread, but I definitely get like spiciness to
spicy, earthy spiciness. I get stone fruit.
You get stone fruit in yours. I don't get stone fruit in mine.
And it makes me really happy.
Saying that, I was going to say I don't get stone fruit in mine. However, saying that, I didn't originally get like a fruitiness. Maybe it's because you put it in my head, but like the subtle undertones of it, like the aftertaste of it, is definitely coming through fruity now. And I think it's probably your fault. You probably just put it in my head.
Sorry. Yeah, I may have put that in your head.
I think you did, but it's good either way. But yeah, I thought it was quite interesting that they went out and they foraged all the spruce tips, and it seemed like it would pair really well next to the spruce grisette. So
they are very different beers, and they show spruce off in very different ways, which I think is really interesting.
You get this, like, I think the thing is you get the spruce quite well from both of them. Like you get spruce in both aroma and taste from both of them, but in, like you said, in very different ways. Which is interesting because if you had asked me a year ago, like, can you brew with spruce? Like, I'd be like, you probably could, but I wouldn't think that it would impact the taste that much, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's obviously, it comes through quite well, more so than I would have even guessed. Yeah, I like them both for like two completely different reasons.
For different ways, yeah. Right, so our next beer, I grabbed this one because I was just like, I feel like we need to have this for a foraged one. And this is Dropped Limb by Duration and Verdant. We might have a Verdant beer that I actually like, people.
To be fair, I like Verdant, but this is very different from like what Verdant normally do, because
there's nothing wrong with Verdant. I don't have a problem with Verdant.
People are going to at you now. They're going to be like, Jo, why do you hate Verdant?
I don't hate them. I just haven't found a beer of theirs that I really enjoy yet.
Yeah, that's because you're not like a hot queen.
I'm not into the juice.
No.
But yeah, no, exciting.
Rustic saison.
Right. And I love a saison, so we are there. So this is from Duration's Fermata range. So Duration are a brewery in Norfolk. It is run by a couple, Bates and Miranda. They are very much about the land and using local ingredients and like working with the local community and things like that. They're also very sustainable in the things that they do. They are based in an old barn on like farmland, and when they started building their brewery, I think I've said this on episodes of the podcast before, but there are bats living in the brewery, and they had to have like conservation come out because they're a particular breed of bat, and they made sure that the bats were okay and they could carry on brewing. They also have a cool ship, and
don't spoil that because we're going to talk about cool ships in a later episode.
Spoiler, we're going to do a cool ship
episode.
They have a cool ship, and they have foeders where they age their beer. And interestingly, this Dropped Limb was in the cool ship, and then they chucked a log in it. They literally found a fallen down tree, they chopped it up and they stuck it in the beer to see what would happen, because Bates likes experimenting like that. So they are one of my absolute favorite breweries. If you haven't had any Duration, where have you been? Please go and drink some Duration.
They did amazing like the brewery tour, like
yeah, they did.
It was like a tour, but it was a tour of the brewery and all that kind of stuff during lockdown. Tastings, that's what it was. That's what I was looking for.
I think they were doing those monthly. They were amazing, the brewery tours.
I know. I had a glass from them, but my glass broke because I gutted.
They're one of my faves. I'm always excited about.
Always consistently theirs. Like really good as well. Like it's always consistently really quality stuff.
Yeah, and so we grabbed this one because just sticking a log in.
That's cool.
What more forage could you get?
It's the most interesting.
They've also currently got out a saison. I think it's a saison that is made from foraged berries that the community foraged together. So if you can get that, try that as well. But should we crack into this because I'm excited.
I haven't tasted it yet. You've tasted yours.
I cracked right in there.
It always makes me. Can I just say as well? Like it always makes me feel fancy. Like when I'm pouring, like a three. Like bottle. I feel like the 375ml bottles because it's just bigger than a normal bottle. Like it always just makes me feel like that much fancy. And then they've got the like indent thing at the bottom. I feel like I'm pouring something really posh.
This is funky.
It is funky, and it's conjuring up memories that I feel like I can't even process them.
I'm gonna tell
you. You know what?
I'm gonna tell you what it is in a minute, but I'm gonna let you drink.
So yours is gonna be like probably. I really hope yours tops the one that I just said that you're gonna hopefully cut out, and I want to leave people cut it out because I want to leave people guessing of what my really weird one was. But I would say it conjures up images of like cut that all out because I let people know that you cut that out. I want them to guess what you've just cut out. And then you can get to me on Instagram and guess what you think I just said.
Yeah,
that smelled like.
It smelled like.
Leave yours in. Don't leave people guessing on yours.
Mine's great. I'm going to get atted for it for sure. So it's got. I think you can get the oak and like the tree from it.
Yeah, there's definitely like a woodiness to it.
Funkiness. Bit of citrus, I think.
I would say like orange, like I definitely get
orange.
Specifically orange, maybe like a bit of lemon, but I'd say more so orange.
It's a saison, so it's got that lovely effervescence that helps clean your palate. It's quite dry.
That's really interesting. It's taken me a moment to process. It's definitely complex. Funky. It's definitely fun. It is very complex. That's why I need a minute to like get my brain around it. And I like it because it has a refreshing quality to it. I bet, as we've discussed in other episodes of saisons, I bet it's like really great on a really hot day. I imagine if it's like really, really hot out, this is super, super fun because it's refreshing now and it's not even
have this with a plate of cheese.
I'm kind of gutted because I wish I had like another bottle of it because I feel really upset I've just cracked the one bottle of it that I have open. I
reckon it would change out as it ages as well.
I might have to get more now because I still do like the undertones to it. I do get like a woodiness to it, but not one that I've had before. Like I've had ones that have had like, smoked woods in it and oaks, and I think I've had, I want to say birch in one of ones I've had before.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's really interesting because this lands in a very, like I don't know what kind of tree it is they use. To be honest, I didn't ask, but
I don't think I've tasted anything like this before.
Me either. It's very interesting. It's very unique. Like it says, very complex. It's very. There's so much layering to the taste.
As I smell it, it smells like walking in the woods.
I could see how you'd get that. That wouldn't be the first thing that my brain goes to. It's very subtle in smell compared to. I think I was thinking I was going to get this really big, wildly funky aroma to it. No, but it's actually really subdued in terms of like it's got some lovely. Like I think the smell is very complex. It's very hard to pick apart. Like you said, we get some bit of orange in there. You get some of those notes woody. a bit earthiness, but it's not, there's nothing that's like a really bold aroma that jumps out at you like the spruce ones did. Like when I smelled the spruce ones, it was like, boom, I can describe that without issue. This one is very,
and I almost get
very layered.
like a mossy, like musky.
I was gonna say musky.
Right.
I was just about to say
I'm glad
musky.
we're both on the same page for that, because
But not in a bad way.
No. Right. And this is going to sound.
So tell me.
This is my weird thing, and
I do enough weird things that we need to leave yours in
like,
to even it out.
People are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" And it's not actually in a bad way, but the smell and the taste a little bit reminds me of Lynx Africa.
If you could you like superimpose a bit of Africa over? Can you just play the song, just the pan flute part of Africa over this? Every time we take a sip of it, could you just put the pan flutes of Africa over it? Because that would genuinely give me the biggest kick in the world.
I don't know what it is about it, but I sat there and
it's really weird because I can actually see. I can see why.
I mean?
Yeah, and that's really weird.
That's why I didn't want to say it to you until after you tried it already. I think it's the mossiness. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like that musky, and like all of this is not in a bad way. Like you're going to hear this and you can be like, musky, what are you talking about? But it's actually really lovely.
Yeah. That's part of the complexity of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's not like we're kind of associating it with this particular thing, but it's not to say that is what, like, it doesn't taste.
Maybe it's perfumey.
Like maybe, but not in like a off-putting way. It is perfumey. I would say that it's a bit perfumey, actually.
So usually Duration put on their what hops and stuff they've used, and they don't. So I was wondering if it was.
So
is that actually, in your information?
Yeah. So basically, one really good thing that they do, that Duration do is when you go on their website. So I'm going to take this moment to shout out their website because it's one of the most user-friendly websites, one of the best functioning websites that any brewery, not even just brewery, like one of the easiest to use websites, user-friendly completely, that I've been on from a company selling things. And they've got so many like cool things. Like since I hadn't gone on since maybe a year or so ago, because every time when I've bought their beers recently, it's been like from a bottle shop, I'll pick one up, or you've picked it up. Mm-hmm. The last time I ordered from them was maybe 6 months to a year ago. And they have like whole new sections that I had not seen before. So assuming this comes out before Christmas, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It definitely will. But, you know, this is a great place to like, you can get Christmas gifts for people, or birthday presents, Hanukkah presents, whatever you celebrate, or just a present because you appreciate someone, like just an appreciation present, because you can get beer for yourself. And not only that, they have homewares. They had cushions on there.
Yeah. With
the designs from their labels. And I was like,
their labels are amazing.
And it's really cool looking pattern. They had balms.
They've got hand cream. You've said Christmas.
Lip balm.
I've been after the hand cream and the lip balm for a while because every time I'm just like, I can't justify buying that right now. I'm just going to buy beer.
Drop a massive hint to Gordon.
We're at a point where we just give each other lists and go, buy me that. It's going on the list. I hadn't even thought. That's totally
me. Like this is so I like to do for Christmas. Like I don't think Rick appreciates it much. What I like to do is I like stockings. Mm-hmm. He just hates buying things for the sake of buying it. Like he doesn't like having tchotchkes or anything like that. For me, like I love stockings. I love stockings because I love that it's like I can get you stuff that you'd buy. Like I just like doing stockings when it's like so boring. This is like what it means to be an adult. When you're like, I'll put like some toothpaste in there, put like some Lynx Africa in there.
Just stick a bottle of a drop live in there.
You put in like, you know, the stuff that people need.
Not in a bad way.
Like shaving.
I don't want people to think this is a bad way because it's really delicious.
But you put like shaving cream in there, like all the stuff that someone needs, but they wouldn't necessarily buy for themselves. If I got stuff but I like to do it like elevated, like next level. So it's like, if I want lip balm, I don't just want like, go and get me the Vaseline brand for like 99p in Boots. Like, get me the Duration lip balm or the hand cream. Right. I don't have a beard at the moment. Therefore, I mean, the beard cream's probably not going to help me. But yeah, they have like all kinds of like the skincare products. They have stationery. I was like, this has evolved so much. But we've gone off topic
Anyway,
because the reason I was taken to their website, the reason I've gone to their website was I noticed as I was looking for this particular one that they have a whole sort of section of their website that is for it's like a beer library.
Yeah, the beer library is so good.
The beer library. So that's like all their beers are on there. If they're still for sale, you can it will guide you to where to buy them. If not, it has all the ingredients, like the style, the ABV, the hops used. I mean, it even breaks it down to like, here's the dry hops. So, I mean, I imagine this one just has dry hops. I imagine if it was just the hops in general, it will probably differentiate it. Other ingredients, who they've collaborated with, their aging method. So it says like aging method for this beer. It says stainless. This was availability one-off, so it wasn't. They have like seasonal on there if it's seasonal. So if we're going to look at like the flavor profiles, it says it should be balanced, citrus pith, dry, experimental, funky, light funk, oat, tart, and sour. Which, like, yeah, I can definitely get the majority of that, if not all of that. I mean, oak, I feel like I'm getting wood, maybe not oak specifically, but maybe it's a different part of oak that I've never had in a beer before. But the dry hops used, I don't want to say this because I'm going to get it so wrong. Mittelfrau. That's why I don't like to say it. And Saz. I'm really not great with those names. But yeah, so those are the two hops that
so that's probably where we're getting there's a little bit of spicy earthiness to it. Those are German hops, so that's you get, and the perfuminess, German hops. I was hoping you'd say they were German hops because perfuminess comes from German hops.
Can you imagine if I was like, oh, it's like fuzzles, fuggles, whatever it is, fuggles, whatever it is.
Nope.
You're like, oh no, it is not what it is. But yeah, no. So that was if you've not seen the beer library and you drink their beer and you want to know more about it, it's really interesting, and it's so like you can do a search function on it. It's so user friendly. Go check out their website. Like, go look at their products. Like, just like I said, looking at their cushions, I was like, these are amazing. Yeah, it's really cool stuff. But they were also super nice in that I messaged them and I asked them a bunch of questions about the beer, and they very kindly came back with a response. So I had said, I'd asked them where the idea for this had originally come from. You know, I know that they've obviously collaborated with Verdant, so I was kind of wondering, you know, who had the initial idea for it. So I'm just going to basically read you the exact response I've got instead of paraphrasing it. So she said, we love working with a sense of time and place to making our beer. Our brewer Bates loves slow beers that come to fruition by being given time in the barrel store. Walking the dog's my times in our rural West Norfolk setting, he passed a veteran oak, perhaps 300 or 400 years old, that had lost a limb in a storm. In part, the dropped limb had a meter circumference. It was not small. He got to thinking, what if instead of aging a beer in wood, we added wood into the wort? So that was quite interesting. Like, I thought, just out for a walk, just walking the dog.
That's like proper foraging right there.
Yeah, walking the dog, and then he was like, shit, this tree's down. I might as well just cut off bits of this. Yeah, that's very interesting. There's been many times that like we've been in the woods and they've been dropped bits on the ground, and my husband's been like, not so much for brewing purposes, but we've been like, oh, this wood's just going to go to waste. It's just going to rot away, or it's going to be removed by the council. Like, oh, we could save that and we could use it for the fire. We could just come and chop up logs. And there's been so many times that Rick has almost gone to the woods with like a handsaw and come back with logs for our fireplace, and he hasn't done it.
Next time you do that, you need to get some and we'll like stick it in a beer.
It'd be really interesting. I don't know if we could do it on a small scale, but it'd be really interesting to do. But that's why like when you told me about this beer, I was like, we have to do it, because so interesting. Just the fact that they're just like, we'll just chuck logs in it. So I said, I asked how many logs roughly did they use, and she said, Miranda said, Bates got his chainsaw and chopped off some of the smaller branches of the drop limb, enough to fill the back of his truck with 30 or so handball-sized logs. I just said, where did the logs come from? And she said, a field near the brewery. So it is proper close to home, close to their brewery. I did ask if they'd ever brewed with them before, because I know that I'd never really seen wood being used in this way, like quite this way before. That's what was really intriguing to me, really interesting to me. So I had to ask, like, did they even have experience with it, or are they just kind of making it up as they go? She said, when visiting Scratch in the US, we added bark into the boil. So I guess not so much just full on chunks of branch, but they used bark, and that's I'd be interested to try that as well. And it ties in with sort of what we were talking about with Red earlier, where she was talking about a brewery in Canada that's used, I think she said bark before for something.
Local tree bark.
Very specific local tree bark. So I asked what the biggest challenge was that they came up with in the process, and she said, gathering the wood was pretty treacherous. And then she said, see photos, which you will have just seen. We cool shipped the beer. We'll talk about cool ships later. But adding it to the wort, we also pitched yeast to ensure fermentation kicked off, as the wild yeast may not have survived the high temps. So I just asked how they mitigated it, and she said wore safety clothing and also pitched some yeast into the wort once the temperature dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So really interesting stuff.
Such an interesting beer.
I just the idea of it sounded really cool, and then hearing about just the fact they just happened upon a downed part of tree was really interesting. And it is an interesting taste. Really, I feel like the taste is as unique as the story behind it.
Yeah.
And what they've chosen to put in it is all very unique as far as I'm concerned.
I love it.
But I really enjoy it. Highly recommend it if you like. Obviously, if you don't like saisons, it might be a bit more of a harder sell for you. But if you like saisons and you want something that's a bit different to the standard saison you get,
funky, complex, and just interesting. Like, I don't think I've ever tasted a beer like this before. So I think if you want an interesting experience, this is the beer for you.
Yeah, I feel like it's weird to say it, but it's like it's complex while also being so simple.
Yeah,
like, does that make sense?
Drinkable.
Very drinkable. Very drinkable.
On a plate of cheese.
The aftertaste that I just got made me think of this is gonna be even weirder than
Is this gonna top Lynx Africa?
I don't know if it will top Lynx Africa, because this actually makes a little bit more sense.
Okay,
but it is probably weirder to think about than Lynx Africa. It's like when you're in school, and like back in the day, you used to write with pencils. You didn't type things on a keyboard, and it was like when you'd sit there chewing on like a pencil.
Oh yes,
because of the fact that, and I, like I said, I don't mean like that was a unpleasant taste.
No,
not that I ate pencils. Like I wasn't like, let me go and eat
you were
pencil,
tasting the wood.
Yes, that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's the woodiness that you get from like when you're like chewing on a pencil, having to think about the answer to your test that you're probably going to fail. That level of taste. No, you didn't. I mean, when you're going to get a passable grade, but a just passable grade. You're thinking about how you didn't study the night before, and you're really taking it all in. That is what it reminds me of, but with less anxiety and stress.
It's lovely. I really enjoy it.
It's nothing but positive memories. Like, I feel like it's conjuring up really good positive memories. I mean, besides the fact of the result day of the test, but the day of taking the test was good. But I'm really loving it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to do that one. It's lovely.
I'm gutted I only have the one. Need some more of it.
I reckon you could get some more. At one point they were doing a case of them, so you could age them.
You can still get a case of them. So you can get a case of them. So they're 7%. It's a box of 6 for $46.80 on their website now. It looks to be still in stock. So they
do what I really like is they do a build a box.
They do indeed.
Pick 6 different beers like that.
They've also started doing so they do clothing, obviously. They've also started branching out into like yoga stuff.
Oh yeah,
you can get like a yoga yeah. So there was it's interesting if you do yoga. I have never been good at yoga, so
I've just started doing yoga.
Don't try anymore. I don't try anymore because I'm not very good. But you can get, if I'm scrolling through, a yoga face towel. I can't see the front of it, so I'm not sure if it says around, but it says branded to show your love of yogurt and beer. So
I think they do. Do they do beer and yogurt? I think they do beer and yogurt.
They do. Yeah. So if you are close enough to them that you can visit there, so they do
they're on my
tap nights.
List.
They are mine as well. And I think I remembered, and I might be making this up, so at me if I've made this up completely, but I swear that you can camp not far away from their brewery, because I feel like
they recommend.
I feel like and I love camping, so I feel like when they were doing one of their tastings, there's something about you can come normally when it's not COVID, you can come and visit and you can camp at this place, and it's not very far from where they are, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, you can go on their website. They do tap night tables that you can book. They do brewery tours you can book, and they do yogurt and beer that you can book for 10 quid. So
amazing.
Not bad at all. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I feel like we've learned a lot tonight.
I feel so, yeah. And tried some things that we wouldn't have tried otherwise. Like, I feel like that's, for me, that's the highlight of like Foraged beers, is it's interesting stuff that you don't just necessarily happen upon with any beer. Like, you don't just happen upon a beer that's just had like logs dumped into it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. More unique, complex flavors.
Yeah, I love it. These are the types of beers that excite me.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we made the last minute decision to like, should we do this one as well? Yes. So you're like, I'm ordering it. I'll do it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm putting an order in. I'm ordering you one.
You're the real MVP there. So yeah, hopefully we can follow up again. Maybe we can get someone on to talk about cool ships. I don't know, but maybe we can follow up again in terms of cool ships, because maybe we've got a beer from theirs that we'll drink that has to do with cool ships. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But yeah,
spoilers. Tori, if people would like to get hold of you and guess what you said that you made me cut out, where can they get hold of you?
All of that out, cut all the bad bits out, all the awkward bits, and then you can come to me and you can guess the awkwardness that is me.
Comment on this episode on Instagram. What do you think Tori said?
Yeah, I feel like if you happen to guess correctly, which you won't, if you happen to guess correctly, I'll give you a beer or something. I don't know.
She's got enough. She can give you one.
I'll give you something, or a glass or whatever. You can have something, I guess, even a crisp high five if you get it right. I don't know, but you'll never guess, so it doesn't matter. I don't have to think about it. But if you want to try to guess, or you want to message me about it, you can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. Joe, if they want to talk to you about Lynx Africa, where can they talk to you about it?
Don't talk to me about Lynx Africa. If you'd like to talk to me,
I want to talk to you about the song Africa.
You can talk to me about Toto in Africa.
Or you could just come to me about that, because I'm a connoisseur of that song. I requested that at the wedding over the weekend.
Did you? Amazing.
We requested it every 80s. Wedding we go to. And we lost our mind. Nobody else appreciates when Africa comes on.
Really?
But we do. And the DJ does. And that's all that I think we had. Normally we've got like no other people interested. This time we got at least 2 other people to sing along, and the DJ loved it.
I have to. So. I am a child of the 80s, so I'm all about that life. If you'd like to talk to me about being a child of the 80s, I am a woman's brew on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or come and learn what words you would use, not Lynx Africa, to describe funky, interesting beers like this at my beer school, Love Beer Learning. That is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest. It also has a website, lovebeerlearning.co.uk, and we have an email address, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. You can email us there. Email us there about what things you would like to hear on the podcast. We would love to do an episode for you. And we are on Patreon. If you would like to help us fund the amazing things that we can do for this podcast, you can contribute £2 a month and help us keep a Women's Brew podcast going. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. On that note, cheers.